Welcome everyone. We'll begin the meeting shortly. Bienvenidos a todos. Comenzaremos en unos minutos. Welcome everyone and thank you for joining us. Bienvenidos a todos y gracias por acompañarnos esta noche. Tonight's meeting will be conducted in both English and Spanish, and we will provide live interpretation in both directions. Esta noche la reunión se llevará a cabo en inglés y español y proporcionaremos interpretación en vivo para ambos idiomas. For our English-speaking members of the community, we ask that you follow these instructions. You can listen to the English interpretation simultaneously from this virtual meeting. On your screen at the bottom on the center, you will have a button in the shape of a globe with options for interpretation. Click on the globe and select the English language. At this point, you will start listening in the simultaneous interpretation in English. Now, for our Spanish-speaking audience, we also ask that you follow these instructions. Para nuestros miembros de la comunidad que hablan español, siguen las siguientes instrucciones. Para interpretación en vivo, usted puede escuchar la interpretación en español simultáneamente de las reuniones de Adams 14 en línea. En su pantalla, en la parte inferior central, tendrá un botón en forma de globo con opciones para interpretación. Haga clic en el globo y seleccione el idioma español. En este momento comenzará a escuchar la interpretación simultáneamente. Now, thank you, and we will now hand the meeting over to JG Consulting. Muchas gracias, y ahora les daremos el tiempo a JG Consulting.
Dr. Linares, we cannot hear you.
How's that? Better?
Perfect.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, and welcome to the Adams County School District 14 Community Forum. My name is Dr. Patricia Linares, and I am joined by my colleague, Dr. Jose Leiva. We are senior consultants with the executive search firm of JG Consulting. JG Consulting had the distinct honor of engaging with Adams County School District 14 to find the next great leader for your district. Tonight, you will have the opportunity to meet the two finalist candidates for Superintendent of Adams County School District 14. The board has engaged in a thorough and time-intensive process and has selected these two individuals from a group of 34 applicants representing 12 different states. Your two finalists include Mr. Stephen Linkus, who currently serves as the Chief of Staff of the Kansas City, Kansas Public Schools, and Dr. Carla Lauria, currently serving as the Chief Academic Officer for Clark County School District in Las Vegas, Nevada. Tonight, we will begin with an introduction of the board, and then we will proceed with the finalist community interviews. Each finalist will be asked 4 questions from our distinguished board members. 2 of these questions will be in English, and 2 of these questions will be in Spanish. At the conclusion of tonight's meeting, you will also be given an opportunity to provide feedback to the board via email at super@adams14.org. Feedback will be collected May 4th through the 7th in advance of the final interviews scheduled for Friday, May 7th from 3 p.m. to 6:15 p.m. At this time, I would like to turn it over to Board President Ramona Lewis, who will begin our meeting.
Thank you, Dr. Linares. Thank you so much for being here tonight to meet our 2 finalists for the important job of Superintendent of Schools for Adams County School District 14. I am the board president and I have served on the board since November 2019. I'm going to ask each of our other board members to introduce themselves before we begin the formal interview process.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. My name is Renee Lovato, and I'm the vice president of the board. Was also elected in November of 2019.
Hello, everybody. I am Connie Quintana. I am the treasurer of Adams 14 School Board, and I'd like to welcome everybody.
Evening, everyone. Welcome. I'm Maria Zubia. I was appointed to the board February 2020, and I am the secretary of the board.
Buenas tardes. Good evening, everybody. My name is Janet Estrada, and I was appointed as a board director in March. Thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you, colleagues. This evening, our first interview will be conducted with Mr. Stephen Linkus, Chief of Staff for Kansas City, Kansas Public Schools. If you could bring Mr. Linkus in. Good evening, Mr. Linkus. How are you this evening?
I'm doing great. Great to see everybody.
Good to see you. Would you please give us a brief introduction of your professional and personal background?
Yes, ma'am. Can I share the screen?
I'm not sure. Cameron, is Mr. Linkus available? Thank you.
I guess I can. So I'm going to go ahead and they always say a picture is worth 1,000 words. So I thought it was very important that the community got to know me. They've had a chance to read my resume. They've had a chance to look at my cover letter. That's only a piece of the story. Something that's very valuable to me is knowing people and building relationships. So in doing that and in knowing so, I think it's very important that you guys get the chance to know quién soy yo, or who am I? So I'm from Colorado. My grandparents were migrant workers, and that great looking couple were my mom's mom and dad. That's Manuel and Anastasia Gonzalez. They ended up settling in a small town, about a little hour and change outside of Denver, called Fort Morgan. You may or may not have driven through there on I-76. And they worked all over the country, Ohio. My mother was born in Illinois. And then finally, my uncle was born in Fort Morgan. And that's when they ended up staying there. Like everybody, they would eventually move to Denver. We all know that there was a migration of people from the small town to the city. So they left the farm, got a house there, and then eventually moved over off 44th and Clay in the north side of Denver. So a little more about me. Yes, that is snow on my beard. I don't have that many canas. I'm not that old. That's just for show, as they say. But I'm from Denver, Colorado. I grew up there. I'm a Denver Public Schools product and very proud to be a Denver North Viking. Having those opportunities and those great teachers gave me the opportunity to get a football scholarship and go to a small college in the middle of central Kansas. In doing that, it opened up my opportunities in my mind and opened up worlds that I never knew existed. Something that was well outside the city and county of Denver, someone that was a little bit further from Adams County, and got me the opportunity to get a BA in history from Park University. When I came back to Denver, I had the opportunity to attend the University of Denver and get my master's in educational leadership. I was able to do that, and that opened up a number of doors and leads into my professional career and who I am and what I'm doing currently and in the past. So this beautiful picture, all these great people over there accompanying me, that's our school board president here in Kansas City, Kansas, Randy Lopez. On the other end is our former board president, Maxine Drew, and two other members of our board, Yolanda Clark and Stacy Yeager. And the gentleman at the end is from the Latinx Collaborative, which I'm a board member of. So looking at my current experience, I'm currently the chief of staff. I have the oversight of 6 different departments: student services, ESL, migrant, athletics, federal and state compliance, the grievance person for the district. So when we have those types of disputes, I'm the one who gets the good fortune, as they say, to make that decision on whether it was a violation or not. And those are some of the things I currently do. You see, we're at El Centro, which is a local group who works in the Latino community and has been there since the 1940s. Community involvement is very important to me. And one of the great things about my job is this has given me opportunities to be on a Univision probably 1 or 2 more times than I'd like, talking about the great things going on in my current school district, and radio stations like La Grande and some of the local things of that nature. Previous to this work, I was an assistant superintendent in Phoenix, Arizona. In that work, we had a $153 million budget. With the team, and I was part of the team, we were able to take the school from a $5 million deficit to a $3 million surplus. At the same time, we were able to get teachers a raise during that time, and that was during the Red for Ed movement, where we knew money was tight, but we knew the value of our teachers, and we knew the value that they were bringing to our students every day. Those are a couple of the highlights of what we were able to do there. On top of that, I worked directly with the schools, and we moved schools that were ranked in F, and we were able to move them into the passing grades on the Arizona State rubric on school performance. Previous to that, I was a school performance officer, a school support officer in Houston, Texas. I was over 10 schools with about 10,000 kids. 9 of the 10 schools were 85% Latino or above. Their ELL rate was 25 to 65%, depending on the campus. And the other school was 60% African American and 40% Latino, and still had about a 25% ELL population. All 10 schools hit standards. We had a 7-star school, which is the highest academic rating you can get. There was 1,450 kids, 95% Latino, and the majority of those students being second language learners.
1 minute remaining.
The expectation is that every kid will get it and every kid will do it. I was a principal in Colorado and Texas. And as you can see, my previous jobs as a dean, assistant principal, football track coach. I'm all about continuous improvement. I have 6 assistant principals that are now successful principals in the Houston Independent School District. My first AP I ever hired in the state of Colorado as a special education director for one of a district down by Pueblo. And I believe in consistent coaching and collaboration. It's about improving practice. Last thing about me, that's a picture when I graduated college. I was the first person in my immediate family to graduate college. Those are my 3 brothers. That's my mom and dad. That was at a place called La Bamba, which no longer exists. It was one of the first Mexican nightclubs in Denver. My tia was the owner, so we got to have the party there for free. We were not a rich family. We were a humble, hardworking family, but education has opened so many doors. And I look forward to sharing more information about myself and talking about the great work I'd like to do as your superintendent, hopefully in the future.
Thank you. So this evening we do have 4 questions for you. 2 of them are in English, 2 of them are in Spanish, and you'll have 5 minutes for each question, and Monica is our timekeeper. Our first question is, tell us your experience in professional learning communities and your expectation for the professional development of administrators and teachers in Adams 14.
Just writing down some notes. So we can start with administrators first, and then I'll work my way back to our teachers. Currently, I help facilitate an 18-person academy here in Kansas City, Kansas. We had 12 aspiring assistant principals and 6 aspiring principals. They had coursework during the spring where they received training on finance, human resources, ESL migrant services, special education, how to work with student services, and how to work, of course, finance budget was a big one, especially in today's world. But we also talked about culture and climate. So we worked with them on, this is what a school should look like. This is what a conducive learning environment looks like for students. And in a second, I'll talk about how that leads into the teachers. But then we also had mock interviews, and we also had a resume writing session. They were able to get instant feedback. I interviewed one of the candidates, so we interviewed them one by one. As soon as the interview was over, we went through their answers. We talked about what they did well and maybe some things to improve. I believe in a consistent professional development model for everyone involved. What this does include then is with our administrators, they're receiving consistent feedback and PD. At monthly administrative meetings, these aren't sit and gets. These are, we're looking at data and we're looking at pedagogy and types of practices that are going to improve schools. We're looking at what's going to improve the climate and culture of our schools. It builds relationships, number 1, with our staff, because if you don't have a staff that's willing to work with you, you're not going to move anything. And number 2, what are those high level and high yield strategies academically that our principals will look for as they do walkthroughs? Therefore, they're then going to look for these things in the classrooms, and our students are going to perform at a higher level. In regards to professional learning communities, I attended the 4 conferences numerous times as a school administrator. I actually facilitated professional learning communities in every building I was principal of, whether it was by content area or grade level, and they were all data driven. We use short cycle assessments to look at data weekly. That data then informed our practice throughout the week. What we did is we did 6-week cycles of lesson plans. So we would find professional development time for our teachers, and they would put those 6-week cycles together. We would then look at our teaching weekly and see how that was going. And that was after visits from the principal, visits from the APs, visits from central office, looking at that feedback, using that feedback to shape instruction, and then looking at how, if Stephen is not doing such a great job, but Ramona is, let's get Stephen visiting Ramona's classroom so we can see what high yield strategy she's using at a higher level. And then having a chance to debrief, plan, and set up the next week of work for the teachers and the students. We got to a point to where I was no longer facilitating. We had a teacher leader that would, myself or an AP would sit in and we would support. So the PLC is a very important process. It's consistent learning, it's consistent improvement, and it's progress monitoring every step of our way.
Thank you.
Thank you for your answer. Next question is around community engagement. Can you please describe how you've successfully engaged and communicated with the community in previous positions?
And I always take notes, so sorry about that. I've taken a few seconds just to write some stuff down. I think it's very important to engage the community. So I'll give you an example of some of my work here. In my current position, I work with the different chambers of commerce. I'll use that as one example. I can take my phone out right now. No, I won't, because we're in the middle of an interview, but I could call the KCK chamber president, and he'll answer the phone, or he'll return my call in short order to see what we can partner on. I can call the Greater Hispanic president, and I can call the Heartland Black Chamber president, and I'll get the same results. It's very important because we're all in this together. So what I've done is I've become an integral part of things that the KCK chamber does. I'm on their education committee. So when there's things that will impact education or bills, I'm part of that process. When we were working on the strategic plan, this was pre-COVID. I don't want anyone to freak out and say, how many people did you have at a school? But we were filling up cafeterias with people to get their input. I facilitated the meetings in both English and Spanish. I got to know people. I got to know what the ins and outs of KCK were. I got to find out what the hot buttons of the dot, it's Wyandotte County, and the nickname's the dot. So you learn those little intricacies and get to know people. What that did then is that opened up dialogue where I was able to get people to be involved. Because some of the data I had to share wasn't pretty. The graduation rate had improved, but it wasn't where we wanted it to be. And as an outsider coming in, a lot of times they're gonna say like, well, ¿quién es este? Who's this guy? Who's he to come in and talk about who we are? So he came in, talked to them. It was easy here because I'd gone to college here. So I just talked about 2 famous barbecue places. I'd say, which one's better? I'd get the, no, this one, no, that one. We broke down the ice and then we could have the dialogue. So then we were able to have those hard conversations of what do you really want from the school? What are we doing well? What are we doing? Then we saw the meetings get bigger. We saw more people attend the next meeting because they heard, you know what, they're gonna listen to you. They're gonna do these types of things. Within the strategic plan, one of the things we, with purpose and strategically put in there was community engagement. We're now working on a report card for our schools. We're gonna look at, do we have quality community engagement within our schools? Not are they coming for a free meal and then we're saying, have a good evening, we'll see you another day and that's it. How are we getting them involved in classrooms? How when we get students back full time and all the time and in a safer space, you know, we're still in a pandemic, so we have to have some, you know, we have to take some precaution. How do we get them back in? The other piece to it with involving the community is everyone has a Facebook page. Well, I might be the only one that doesn't, but everyone else does. Everyone has a Twitter page. Everyone has Instagram. How are we utilizing social media to get our word out? How are we using those contacts with our local media to create community excitement about what we're doing, to where now they're calling the schools, to now they want to be a part of things, and they're talking about the initiatives. So whether it's me in front of a crowd of 200 people pre-COVID, not currently, or me in front of a screen like this in front of a large group of people, listening and having two-way dialogue. The last thing I'll say about it is you have to do something with what you hear. If you want legitimate community engagement, you're listening to feedback. It's not about I came here, I listened, and hey, have a great day. It's I'm coming back in a few weeks or a month. We're going to talk about what was talked about. And guess what, parents, you got homework too. And you're going to come back and talk about what you did to help us improve. But then I'm going to come back as a superintendent and say, hey, we heard you. These are the steps we're taking. And this is how we're looking to make the changes that you think we need to make and implement them so that your students get the highest yield on their education. And in doing so, I've continually seen more people show up to meetings because you know what? They know they're heard and they know they want to be part of something.
Thank you.
Okay. Sorry, I had to take my microphone off. Esta pregunta va a ser en español. So, buenas tardes y buenas tardes a los que están participando hoy. Si no han hechole clic, como quien dice, si no le han presionado para la traducción, es el globito que está abajo. So if you have not yet tried the interpretation or clicked on the little world globe that's at the bottom of your screen, please do so, as this next question is going to be in Spanish. Well, the next two. Okay, so buenas tardes. So, ¿qué significa tener un compromiso hacia la diversidad, equidad y inclusión? ¿Y cómo ha mejorado su conocimiento suyo para desarrollar o aplicar a su compromiso con el distrito Adams 14?
Dame un momento para escribir algunas notitas.
Sí, no, está bien. Si gusta, se lo puedo repetir.
Sí, porfa.
Sí, so, ¿qué significa tener un compromiso hacia la diversidad, equidad e inclusión? ¿Y cómo ha mejorado su conocimiento para desarrollar o aplicarla a su compromiso con el distrito Adams 14?
Voy a comenzar con el primer parte. Por ahora, mi trabajo que tengo, eso es uno de los departamentos que yo superviso. So, yo tengo las reuniones cada semana, cada viernes, con los coordinadores que hagan ese trabajo. So, lo que estamos haciendo aquí es que estamos abriendo las puertas al acceso y la oportunidad. Eso es realmente qué significa esas palabras para mí, porque casi hablé en inglés, porque cuando estamos pensando las cosas, en el pasado el problema fue una falta de acceso o oportunidad. Algunas veces fue el sistema o no fue oportunidad. Entonces, ¿qué tenemos que pensar? Es cómo sacamos esas barreras para hacer eso. Entonces, ¿qué yo he hecho en ese distrito donde estoy ahora? Entonces, después voy a hablar un poco sobre el distrito. He trabajado con ellos para que tenemos libros que reflejan los alumnos, que tenemos materias que están reflejando los alumnos en las escuelas. Del distrito donde trabajo, 90% de alumnos de color. Entonces, cuando buscamos materias, cuando buscamos libros, cuando buscamos cualquier cosita, ya estamos buscando de un ojo de equidad. Estamos buscando de un ojo inclusivo. So, estamos haciendo eso. También, que estamos haciendo aquí, es que tenemos no quiero decir una prueba, pero es más o menos una prueba. Cuando visitamos la escuela, fijamos todo en los salones, fijamos todo en la escuela para ver si es un lugar que está incluyendo eso, si es inclusivo, si está abriendo acceso a las clases, si está abriendo acceso a el currículo y todas esas cosas. En el sentido del distrito Adams 14, sabemos que el nivel de lectura no es donde queremos estar. Primeramente, tenemos que tener programas bilingües como las escuelas dual languages con los dos idiomas que están aprendiendo los alumnos. Eso es el acceso de la lectura. Sabemos en la vida el acceso de lectura es el clave de todo. Si uno puede leer, tiene la oportunidad de avanzar en la vida. Segundo, también tenemos que asegurar que estamos escuchando la voz del alumno. Que quiero hacer yo es poner un comité de alumnos con quien yo tengo reunión cada semana para asegurar que ellos tienen acceso pues, a la educación, que ellos tienen acceso a las clases de AP, que es avanzados, ¿no? Que ellos tienen acceso a los programas de certificado. Así pueden salir de aquí sabiendo que ellos tienen acceso a la universidad y también que tienen acceso a los certificados en el sentido, en el caso si quieren ir directamente a trabajar. Entonces, el acceso y la oportunidad son las cosas más importantes. Ahora, las calificaciones del distrito, hay logramiento académico, de crecimiento académico, pero no estamos logrando las metas del Estado. Y yo creo que abriendo esas puertas de la lectura por los programas bilingües y también acceso a diferentes clases y la oportunidad, eso sí era la oportunidad para los alumnos, para tener lo mejor futuro que pueda y van a tener acceso a la universidad o el trabajo que ellos quieren cuando se gradúa de la high school.
Gracias.
Gracias.
Bueno, sigue la próxima pregunta. Igual está en español. Y la pregunta dice, díganos cómo ha sido ser líder para los estudiantes multilingües. Díganos cómo ha sido ser líder para los estudiantes multilingües.
Dame un momento, estoy escribiendo algo. Primeramente, yo creo que soy un ejemplo de alguien que habla 2 idiomas. Entonces, que yo hablo inglés y español abrió un montón de puertas para mí. Un parte de la razón por qué estoy aquí con ustedes esa noche es porque sí hablo los 2 idiomas, sí puedo comunicar, sí soy bilingüe. Entonces, la cosa para mí es, los programas dual language o con los 2 idiomas es algo muy importante porque yo puedo ser un líder a ellos porque yo soy como los muchachos. Yo soy de una comunidad muy cerquita. Yo soy de una persona de 2 idiomas. Entonces, para mí, yo voy a ser el ejemplo visitando las escuelas. Yo voy a ser el ejemplo hablando en los 2 idiomas. Yo voy a ser el ejemplo empujando el currículo, empujando la fuerza académica para que aprendan los 2 idiomas. También lo voy a utilizar cuando estoy comunicando con los padres y cuando tengo reuniones para que todos los alumnos sepan que es muy importante hablar los 2 idiomas. Primero, yo fui maestro bilingüe. Cuando yo fui maestro bilingüe en hace muchos años, no quiero decir cuándo, no había libros en español. Tuvimos libros en inglés y los muchachos no tenían nada. Entonces yo tuve que empujar para tener materia en español. Yo estaba en una escuela que no tuvimos suficiente representación. Hemos empujado para los alumnos para tener lo mejor. Hoy en mi distrito, ¿qué estamos haciendo? Estoy trabajando con el departamento de inglés como segundo idioma, porque eso también está fijando programas bilingües. Y estamos empujando por una escuela bilingüe aquí, una escuela dual language. Yo he tenido la oportunidad para avanzar en nivel académico para ellos. También yo he trabajado con diferentes distritos para buscar materias en otros idiomas, para que los padres puedan leer con los alumnos, que también pueden involucrarse en la educación, porque muchas veces la gente dice que, pues no les importa a los padres. Sí, importa a los padres. Yo fui director, yo estoy trabajando en la administración central. Nunca he conocido una mamá o papá que dijo así. Siempre quiere involucrarse. A veces que no tiene experiencia con este sistema. Entonces, con esas materias, los podemos involucrar. Mandamos computadoras a la casa. Ahora estamos usando Flyer Connect, que usan ustedes allá también, para involucrar a los padres, para que ellos sepan que hagan sus alumnos, para que sepan lo mejor y para que sepan que hey, los alumnos tienen que estar leyendo todas las noches, todos los días. Últimamente, quiero hablar en mi trabajo. Es muy importante como líder que yo empujo eso a toda la gente que trabaja en Adams 14. Es muy importante que la gente del académico sepa que vamos a tener alumnos bilingües que van a dominar los 2 idiomas. No que se defiende, pero domina. ¿Y cómo vamos a hacer eso? Con programas bilingües o dual language que son súper fuertes y súper buenos. ¿Cómo vamos a hacer eso? Con un plan de transición. Hay el plan comprensivo que tiene el distrito que vamos a utilizar de lectura, el reading. Entonces, van a leer a ese nivel. También voy a trabajar con los directores. Vamos a traer los mejores expertos adentro y afuera para empujar eso también. Empujando eso, los alumnos van a salir dominando los dos idiomas porque vamos a estar revisando el progreso de ellos pues cada semana. Ellos van a recibir reportes y nosotros como líderes vamos a empujar en cada nivel. Así ellos reciben esa información para ellos saben su nivel académico. Desde ahí seguimos empujando, será un cíclico que seguimos empujando.
Muchísimas gracias.
Muchas gracias.
Mr. Lincas, thank you once again for being here with us tonight. Would you like to give a 3-minute closing statement before we conclude this interview?
Sure, I would love to. Thank you, Dr. Linares, for that opportunity. You know, this is a quick snapshot of who I am. And walking into this is always something, it's very interesting and very different. You know, being someone who grew up in Colorado and understand what it's like to be from that area and to be someone who went through the educational system. You know, I know what it's like to have family that didn't speak English. I know what it's like to have parents that had to work lots of hours and numerous jobs in order to make sure that I had everything I needed. So I very much connect with our community in that way. The other thing is education was a door for me. And it needs to be the door.
This is Cameron Wise, and I do apologize. Our interpreter, I need to ask our interpreter to switch panels, please.
Okay. So Dr. Linares, should I start my 30 seconds over?
Just go ahead and begin with your 3-minute statement. Thank you.
Yeah, so being from Denver, I grew up about 15 minutes away. I'm very familiar with Commerce City. My last residence was in Henderson, so I lived just north of there. Would go there all the time, but I was a kid just like the kids in the district. I grew up like most of the kids in Commerce City in the Adams 14 district. My parents worked to give me something better. They worked to give me the opportunities that they may or may not have ever had. So I very much understand what our kids go through on a daily basis. Education was a great route for me. And it was a great route for me because I had teachers that at that time, I will not say it this time, would get me by the ear or the arm of coaches and make sure I got to where I needed to be. No, I'm not promoting that at this time because we don't do that. But what I will promote is the intensity of the passion we have for our students and their learning. We'll do this because every bilingual student is worth 2 persons. You know, una persona bilingüe vale doble. Eh? So it's very important that we understand that and that we push that as a system. And it's also very important that the kids are not just numbers. Do scores need to go up on state tests? Yes. Do we need to show growth? Yes. But it needs to be the Paloma showing growth. It needs to be the Enrique showing growth. And it also needs to be that our principals and our teachers are showing growth. And if I get the opportunity to lead you, we're going to make sure that we're resourced. We're going to make sure that our people have everything they need to have. And we're going to make sure that we're going to deliver the school district that we all want Adams 14 to be. And know from my heart, it's personal work. It's not a job. And I would love the opportunity to make sure that we all get the district to where we know it can be. And that is out of priority turnaround and into greatness. So muchas gracias por todo. Y muchas gracias a todo el público que nos ha acompañado esta noche.
Again, thank you, Mr. Lincas. We appreciate you taking the time tonight and visiting with the community. And at this time, you are able to leave the Zoom. But again, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Now, as a reminder, this forum is only for the community to meet the candidates, and attendees will not be allowed to ask any questions, but you can send comments and feedback to the email super@adams14.org. Como recordatorio, este foro es solo para la comunidad para que puedan conocer a los candidatos. Miembros de la comunidad no pueden hacer preguntas, pero sí pueden enviar sus comentarios al correo electrónico super@adams14.org. Now, for our English-speaking members of the community, we ask that you follow these instructions for live interpretation. You can listen to the English interpretation simultaneously from this virtual meeting. On your screen at the bottom on the center, you will have a button in the shape of a globe with options for interpretation. Click on the globe and select the English language. At this point, you will start listening to the simultaneous interpretation in English. And for our Spanish-speaking audience, we ask that you follow these instructions. Para nuestros miembros de la comunidad que hablan español, sigan las siguientes instrucciones. Para interpretación en vivo, usted puede escuchar la interpretación en español simultáneamente de las reuniones de Adams 14 en línea. En su pantalla, en la parte inferior central, tendrá un botón en forma de globo con opciones para interpretación. Haga clic en el globo y seleccione el idioma español. En ese momento comenzará a escuchar la interpretación simultánea. And now we will introduce the next candidate. Ahora presentaremos al siguiente candidato.
Good evening, Adams County 14 Public and Community. Buenas noches, damas y caballeros de la comunidad de Adams 14. Su muy amable servidor José Leiva. I am very pleased to introduce the next finalist, Dr. Carla Lauria, and I'll turn it over to Board President Ramona Lewis to begin the second forum for our second finalist. Thank you.
Thank you. Our second interview will be conducted with Dr. Carla Lauria, who currently serves as the Chief Academic Officer for the Clark County School District. Good evening, Dr. Lauria. Thank you so much for being with us here tonight. Would you please give us a brief introduction of your professional and personal background?
Yes, absolutely. Good evening, everyone. First and foremost, I would like to start by congratulating our teachers and celebrating them. We are celebrating the teachers this week, and I just want to acknowledge the hard work that each one of our teachers put into the classrooms, especially this year with the pandemic. I know it has been extremely hard, but I do want to take a moment to recognize their hard work. So congratulations and thank you for what you do. I'm delighted to be here sharing a little bit about me and about how I can serve the Adams 14 School District. I have been an educator for over 30 years now. I actually decided and knew I wanted to be a teacher when I met my kindergarten teacher. So that is how important I believe that impact that teachers have on students is. I became a teacher for more than 10 years. I was a teacher, then I became an administrator at the school. I became a principal, and for the last 13 years, I have been holding administrative positions at the central office level. And 9 of those years have been as a region superintendent, supervising schools. I had 15 schools my first year. In my last year, before I was promoted to be a chief academic officer, I had 120 schools in my region as a region superintendent. Some of the experiences as an educator and as a leader that I can share with you is as a principal, I was appointed in 2005 to be the principal of one of the lowest performing schools in the district at that time in North Carolina. And after analyzing the student needs, we collaborated. We secured a school improvement grant of $300,000 at the time was a lot of money. And we together collaborated, and in 1 year, we were able to increase the reading scores of the students, the achievement of the students by 16 percentage points. Later, as a superintendent of a region in Houston, I was responsible for 63 schools. And my team and I analyzed the data of the schools, the needs of the principals, and we were able to provide professional development that resulted in 17 of the 25 schools that were considered low performing by the state were able to get out of that low performance or improvement required and advance to the next level. As most recently, as a student support officer in Colorado Springs, we analyzed the structures of the district because we were experiencing a lot of expulsions of our students. And we analyzed the structures of the district to support the students. And we collaborated with the administrators. And in 1 year, we were able to reduce by more than half those expulsions in 1 year. And I am confident that we can achieve similar results in Adams 14 if we ensure 3 key elements. Number 1, we need to work collaboratively. Board of Education, parents, students, principals, teachers, community at large coming together and ensuring that no longer anyone will feel that this is done to us by the district. The second element, empowering stakeholders to be part of the decision-making process. And thirdly, ensuring that we have high expectations for everyone and a no excuse mentality because our students depend on us. Personally, I just became a grandmother. My husband and I just welcomed a Coloradan grandchild. She does have Coloradan lungs as well. And she is just 2 weeks old today. And as a parent, just like you, a grandparent, I want to be I want to be able to provide a better future for our students, for my kids, for our students at the district. And we have no time to waste. I look forward and I am looking forward to collaborating with you and ensuring that we make decisions to support our students and for our students.
Thank you. So we do have 4 questions to ask you this evening. 2 of them will be in English, 2 of them will be in Spanish. And you'll have 5 minutes for each question. And as you could see, Monica is our timekeeper this evening. So our first question is, tell us your experience in professional learning communities and your expectation for the professional development of administrators and teachers in Adams 14.
Thank you, Trustee Lewis. My expectations for professional development, it's first of all, it needs to be timely. Professional development for our administrators and teachers. It must address the needs of our students. It cannot be just any good professional development that we feel might be interesting. It must address the needs of our students. So we need to analyze the data of our students, analyze the needs of our leaders as instructional leaders, and then ensure that that professional development is actually addressing those needs. It must improve instructional leadership from both teachers and administrators. It needs to be embedded in the work. It cannot be, 2 months of PD and then just expecting that everything is going to be implemented. It must be embedded. And my expectation for administrators would be that they will be providing timely and constant feedback to the teachers on how implementing those new skills are being observed in the classroom. For PLCs, we're actually providing training and developing a guide for our district in Clark County on PLCs, and just understanding that PLCs can have different functions or can be serving the teachers in different ways. One of them is analyzing data, student data, and it's not only scores of tests, it's also student work, analyzing where they are as far as the development of their skills. Also allowing teachers to plan units, especially those hard to teach units. It's an opportunity for them to get together and plan and even practice before they go live to the students, practice how to introduce a hard to teach concept. It is also an opportunity in which actually teachers can be observing other teachers. So during the PLC, they can be observing teachers and giving each other feedback. My expectation is, and as a leader, I recognize that one of the main jobs I have, because the number one job as a superintendent is student achievement, but one of the most important aspects of my job will be to develop those who are actually impacting and having daily contact with the students.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome, Trustee Lewis.
Good evening. I'm going to introduce the next question. Nice to see you again. Can you please describe how you've successfully engaged and communicated with the community in previous positions?
Thank you, Trustee Lovato. Yes, so in previous positions, I have always focused on actually building a trusting relationship and a respectful relationship with all stakeholders. I believe it starts with visibility. I need to be out there. I need to go and reach out to them. In actually this current position, I was very purposeful in trying to reach out to city elected officials. There was a reputation or a feeling that the city elected officials in the district were sometimes not on the same page, and it was just not the best reputation. And I reached out to them. It took me several weeks actually, and I was able to meet with them one-on-one and allow them to hear me, to know who I am, and allowed me to ask questions of what is it that they hope for their students, what is it that they envision in the schools in the city. And we were able to strengthen the relationship in a way that actually yielded to them collaborating with us to grant us dollars for the schools. They actually granted $3 million for the schools projects. And I was going to them on a quarterly basis to share the council meeting, the city council meeting, the data of the schools, or any information they wanted. They knew they could just pick up the phone and talk to any of us on my team. And I believe that is important because today's role on educating students, and not in the middle of the pandemic, just the social and emotional needs before the pandemic. We really need all hands on deck, and we need to work with cities in our communities and resources that are available outside of the schools to see how we can bring those, or how we can just together support the students. I actually started trying to be invisible at the district at Adams 14, and last week I actually went and I was having conversations with people who were sitting outside or standing outside of the school. Some of them were employees. Some of them were just giving away the meals. It was on a Friday, so there were no kids. And some of them were parents. I also reached out and walked into a couple of businesses and just asked questions. Hey, I'm just, considering the area. So what can you tell me about the schools? And I do know that there's a perception, at least from the people that I spoke with, they have their own perceptions, whether is what is happening or the intention of the district. We don't know that. I don't know yet because I'll need to ask more questions. But what I know is that is their perception, is their reality. And we need to listen to those realities. We need to acknowledge how they feel and get together at a table to see how we resolve the problems. But I believe engaging them, building trust in relationship, respectful relationships, being visible, and sitting together to problem solve is how we can, and how I like to engage with the communities.
Thank you.
Buenas tardes, doctora Lauria. So, esta pregunta va a ser en español y la siguiente también. De nuevo, para los que están escuchando, si necesitan presionar el botoncito para la interpretación, por favor de hacerlo. Ok, so, gusto en verla de nuevo.
Igualmente.
Gracias. ¿Qué significa tener un compromiso hacia la diversidad, equidad y inclusión, y cómo ha mejorado su conocimiento para desarrollar y o aplicarlo a su compromiso con el distrito Adams 14?
Okay. Entonces, equidad, si puede repetir la pregunta.
Sí,
sí.
¿Qué significa, disculpe, qué significa tener un compromiso hacia la diversidad, equidad e inclusión, y cómo ha mejorado su conocimiento suyo para desarrollar y o aplicarlo a su compromiso con el distrito 14?
Perfecto. Muchas gracias, miembro Subia. En realidad, tener un compromiso con equidad, diversidad e inclusión, la primera palabra que se me viene a la cabeza es ser valiente. En realidad son temas que son muy difíciles en muchas ocasiones, pero hay que ser valiente y tener estas conversaciones con los diferentes grupos, teniendo respeto, escuchando cuáles son los sentimientos de la gente cuando hablamos de diversidad, de equidad, de inclusión. Son asuntos muy personales para todos, para todas las personas envueltas, y tenemos que respetar y escuchar qué es lo que ellos sienten y de dónde vienen. Creo que un compromiso, además de ser valiente, también se demuestra en teniendo prácticas en el distrito en el que se analicen cuáles son las prácticas que nosotros tenemos dentro del distrito que apoyan o no apoyan diversidad y equidad. Por ejemplo, en el distrito ahora, casualmente en estas 2 semanas, hemos estado viendo las preguntas que se le hacen a los candidatos para administración en el distrito. Porque algunas de las preguntas, ya pensándolas bien, son preguntas que tienen predisposiciones o biases que en realidad ponen en una situación de desventaja a los candidatos de minorías. Y es importante en nuestras escuelas que los niños tengan esos modelos, gente que se parezca a ellos, que hablen como ellos y que puedan tener una conexión cercana con ellos. También creo que parte de ese compromiso a la inclusión, especialmente que usted menciona, es analizar materiales de instrucción que le tenemos a los niños. En el distrito, yo he estado trabajando con en mi puesto de jefe académico, he estado trabajando con algunas de las organizaciones y gente que apoya la inclusividad, y hemos podido traer a individuos que pueden hablar de lo que es la inclusión, que pueden ayudarnos a nosotros a ver cómo vemos los libros, los textos, todos los materiales que le traemos a los niños, para ver si ellos de una manera muy sutil están apoyando o están afectando esa inclusión. Entonces creo que como distrito tenemos que tener esas prácticas, inclusive en las bibliotecas de las escuelas, tener esas prácticas, tener grupos de padres, un comité que pueda estar revisando los libros que están ahí, que puedan dar sus opiniones y que puedan ayudarnos en sí como un equipo a asegurarnos de que todos los materiales que los niños tengan estén apoyando la equidad y la diversidad. Pienso que la pandemia ha expuesto muchísimas inequidades que hemos tenido por muchos años. Y en realidad ha sido una oportunidad, a pesar de que ha sido muy dolorosa en muchas circunstancias esta pandemia, ha sido una oportunidad para que como una institución educativa podamos empezar a descubrir esas inequidades y hacer algo por ellas, porque en realidad depende de nosotros que todos los niños tengan un acceso a una calidad de instrucción elevada y alta, no cualquier instrucción, no un poquito para que se entretengan, no, algo que los prepare para las demandas que estos niños van a enfrentar cuando sean grandes y se vayan al mundo a trabajar.
Muchísimas gracias.
Gracias a usted, Patricia.
Y la siguiente pregunta es, díganos cómo ha sido ser líder para los estudiantes multilingües. Díganos cómo ha sido ser líder para los estudiantes multilingües.
Ok. ¿Cómo ha sido? Bueno, creo que también puedo pensar en 2 emociones que me vienen a la cabeza. Primero, emocionante, porque es en realidad un trabajo en el que sé que poniendo estructuras a nivel de distrito, poniendo sistemas a nivel de distrito que ayuden a nuestros estudiantes multilingües, no solamente a aprender el nuevo idioma de inglés, porque ellos pueden hablar otro idioma, pero sino también a mantener su idioma natal, a estar orgullosos de su idioma natal y saber que ellos pueden ver eso como un valor agregado que ellos traen a la sociedad. Eso es emocionante. Y se me ponen los pelos de punta, porque en realidad es un sueño, es saber que uno hace un trabajo y que años después, ya uno retirado o quién sabe dónde, todavía estos esfuerzos que tenemos hoy en día tienen un efecto en los niños, en las familias por venir. Entonces, emoción es uno, pero también tristeza. Tristeza porque como nación, como distrito, como estado, tenemos años de estar hablando de la brecha académica de los niños, de los diferentes grupos, de los niños que hablan otros idiomas, que son multilingües. Tenemos años y la brecha sigue. Entonces eso hasta cierto punto me da tristeza en mi corazón, pero me ayuda a tener fuerzas cada día para seguir luchando, seguir trabajando por los niños. Estoy convencida de que colaborando, porque yo sola no lo puedo hacer, tiene que ser un equipo. Entonces esa colaboración es lo que nos va a ayudar en Adams 14 a tener un pequeño pedacito de cielo para nuestros niños, que se sientan cómodos con lo que ellos hablan, que se sientan cómodos con sus padres, con sus familias, con sus culturas. Inclusive dentro de la cultura hispana, tenemos muchas maneras de hacer las cosas. Y para mi cultura una familia puede tener una cultura en ciertas cosas, otra en otras, celebrémoslas, reconozcámoslas y valorémoslas como lo que son, algo genuino para las familias y que los niños deben sentirse orgullosos para que puedan seguir el trabajo cuando ya nosotros no estemos.
Gracias.
Dr. Lauria, excuse me. Thank you once again for being here with us tonight. Would you like to give a brief 3-minute closing statement before we conclude your interview?
Sí, por supuesto. Y como las últimas 2 preguntas fueron en español, voy a seguir en español. Sí, está bien. Creo que quiero decirle esto a los miembros de la junta directiva, a los padres, a los maestros, estudiantes que están presentes hoy o que lo van a ver más tarde. Yo tengo la bendición de poder servir al distrito como la siguiente superintendente, quiero que sepan que yo me voy a esforzar primeramente en un objetivo, y es crear un equipo en Adams 14, Team Adams 14, el equipo de Adams 14. Y este equipo va a estar enfocado en tener una sola agenda, y es los niños primero. Creo que tenemos un distrito en el que le hemos estado fallando a los niños por muchos años, y es suficiente. Debemos venir como un equipo, colaborar para buscar esas soluciones, empoderar a las familias, a los estudiantes mismos, a ser parte de la mesa donde se están tomando las decisiones, porque cuando ellos son parte de esas decisiones, eso va a asegurar una responsabilidad de todos. Somos todos dueños de la decisión. No más nadie a sentir que el distrito está haciendo esto o el distrito está haciendo lo otro, no. De ahora en adelante, o del momento en que me den esa oportunidad, si me dan esa bendición, en ese momento en adelante es nosotros vamos a trabajar por nuestros niños. Creo que debemos celebrar cada pequeño esfuerzo que se hace. Las escuelas, si tienen un pequeño avance, eso lo vamos a celebrar. Vamos a analizar el data de los estudiantes, identificar cuáles son las necesidades de los niños, traer estrategias que son basadas en evidencia. No puede ser en lo que sintamos que va a ser bien, no, tiene que ser estrategias basadas en evidencias con el único propósito de acelerar el crecimiento académico y emocional de los niños. Así que Team Adams 14, equipo de Adams 14, con una agenda, y esa es: los niños siempre van a ser primero. Muchísimas gracias.
Thank you, Dr. Lauria. We really appreciate it, and you can now exit the Zoom meeting. Community members, public, we want to thank you once again for joining us for this very important event. Also, on behalf of JG Consulting, we're honored to work with the Board of Education. And we also want to thank them. As my colleague, Dr. Linares stated earlier, they have been through a very thorough and time-intensive search process. I know because members of our team have been there with them a couple of evenings, along with the MGT team, all working together to select your new superintendent. So this is just one step in the process. There is one final step on May 7th, and you will have more information on that on the website. Please be reminded that we encourage your feedback and welcome you to send your responses to super@adams14.org. And now I want to turn the meeting over to Board President Ramona Lewis, who will do a closing statement. Thank you very much. Muchísimas gracias. Buenas noches. You're mute, Mrs. Lewis. There you go. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Liba, and thank you to our finalists, JG Consulting and my fellow board colleagues for being here this evening. And thank you mostly to our community for your involvement. As Dr. Liba said, we encourage you to provide feedback on our two finalists at super@adams14.org. The next step to our process will be a public interview with each of the two finalists on Friday, May 7th, beginning at 3 p.m. More information on this and other things regarding the superintendent search can be found at our superintendent search webpage. Again, thank you for your participation in this important process. Have a wonderful evening.
Have a good one.
Bye. Thank you all.